35th episode of the Andy Campbell Championship Show, only on Ace Podcast Nation. I'm your co-host, Si. I'm joined by ex-championship striker, Cardiff City legend, Mr. Andy Campbell, to talk through the weekend's goings-on in the Sky Bet Championship. Welcome, Andy. It's great to have you back. It's going to be
my pleasure, mate.
More
goals, more action. You know what I mean? It's starting to get interesting now a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's taking it's weird, isn't it? Like, it feels like there's been loads of games, but I was looking at the table earlier. There's still only 6 games gone.
Yeah, I know. It's things like it's flew by, but at the same time, it feels as though, I think because it's taking shape a little bit, and I think certain teams haven't started as well. You know what I mean? You're looking up rather than, you know what I mean, looking across or down a little bit, which is the best place to look.
Indeed. So just quick little bit of housekeeping, sponsorships, blah-de-blah. All our shows and series available in video format at youtube.com/AcePodcastNation, and audio at all the usual podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, TuneIn Radio, and loads of others. Today's show is brought to you by Away Day Apparel, as modelled by myself. Away Day Apparel is a casually obsessed football fans looking to bring something different to the wardrobes of like-minded people. With football music and weekend carnage high on the agenda, they aim to bring you some exclusive products. They are edgy, controversial, but most importantly current, from t-shirts, polos, shorts to hoodies, jackets and accessories. Stick with them and they will bring you terrace wear that will turn heads and provide the cutting-edge look that we all crave. So yeah, I had got this t-shirt from Away Day Apparel. I quite like it. Lovely fit.
Yeah, lovely.
And what I really like about it is it's really good quality t-shirt. Like, it's like nice and soft, and it's nice. I like it.
Yeah, sound.
I like some of their hoodies as well, and the hoodies.
Yeah, they've got some good gear. They've got good, and all over social media. You know what I mean? They're very with what people want as well, which I like. You know what I mean? So.
Indeed, yeah. I can see me getting some more stuff actually before the year is out. But there we go. So yeah, we're going to stick with the format from last week, where we did sort of 3 featured games and then sort of scan through the other games.
Yeah.
So let's get started. First game, I think we'll start with is Cardiff and Fulham, which was Friday night. Finished 1-1.
I always knew it was going to be tough. I put something on social media on Friday night about. I wasn't really looking forward to the game in aspects of. I think you already knew what it was going to be like, because Fulham like to keep the ball, Cardiff like to upset that kind of rhythm and kind of keep ball kind of play. And it wasn't going to be. I didn't think it was going to be a classic with loads of goals, because it's full of good players and probably tight defences. You know what I mean? But Neil Warnock needed to tighten things up a little bit, obviously, after what's gone on this season, especially midweek in the cup game against Luton. And obviously Fulham away from home don't seem to score as freely as they do at home, so it was never going to be. It was never really going to be a great game, but it's just possession against versus direct play. You know what I mean? I thought Fulham kept the ball really well in the first half. I thought they were the dominant side, but they didn't really create in the final third as much as what I thought they were going to do. You know what I mean? I thought Cardiff were a lot more dominant, creating chances. You know what I mean? And were unlucky not to score before they did score. And the goal was a strange one. Josh Murphy's goal, I thought was from Cardiff's point of view, I thought it was a really good goal. And then when I watched it again a couple of times after, I thought the goalkeeper probably should have had it. You know what I mean? And I think he'll have been a little bit disappointed with it. You know what I mean? Because he is a very good goalkeeper, and he made some outstanding saves on the night. And probably, for his high standards, probably should have kept that out. But I know I raved on about him the week before about Alexander Mitrovic, and you know what I mean, the timing of the goal was one thing, but to leave a goal scorer of that natural ability, that free in the box, you've got zero chance. And from the ability of Cardiff's defending, you know what I mean, they've got good enough players to stop those things happening, stopping the crosses going in the box, stopping the intricate plays inside the box, and then just simple stuff like marking men and not letting good players run off the back of you. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating, because I know exactly how good Aidan Flint can be. I know how good Sean Morrison can be, Joe Bennett. Yeah, but it's so frustrating that it's just not happening at the minute, and it's costing them dearly, because they should have gone on to win that game, because they should have gone into half-time 1-0 ahead, and it would have been such a different game, and it just gave Fulham a boost at such the right time. unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, the Luton game to me, like I would have liked to have won, but it means nothing in that it was a load of kids and reserves generally, and players who haven't been playing. So the result doesn't matter, but obviously to lose in that way is not good either. I thought Aidan Flint had an excellent game, other than the goal. He completely switched off, which is a shame because I thought he played a bit better last week. And then I thought he was, apart from that, was really good. He set up the goal as well with a great sort of interception. I agree with you about the keeper. Having seen my boy do like thousands and thousands of reps of drills where you go one way and then dive back the other way.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the keeper was. He would have done that a million times over the summer, let alone in his career, where he goes to the near post and then goes across to save to the far post, and to get a big hand to it, he'll be disappointed. But Josh Murphy couldn't have done much else because whoever was in the middle was not quite up there for the cross.
No, he did the right thing. He took the shot early, and I think that maybe he's caught the keeper off guard a little bit because he was going away from goal to then get his shot away. Bettinelli just couldn't get his feet sorted out, and because he's a big guy, he couldn't really get down as quick as probably he'd have liked. And like you say, he's still got a hand to it, but it wasn't strong enough, and luckily enough and good enough for us that the Cardiff took the lead. But I would like to say though, first half I thought Gavin White, he was absolutely electric, outstanding. He ran at people. He was it's first time seeing him live really, and I thought he was outstanding. He was just direct. He was very, very tricky on the ball. If I'm being ultra critical, he was probably getting the ball too deep and having to run far too far with the ball to cause any problems. He's getting the ball inside Fulham's inside Cardiff's half and then driving through. Whereas I'd like to get him the ball. Maybe he's 25, 30 yards out and driving in the box, and because by then no one can touch him, and I think he'll create a lot more chances if he does that. But with that to happen, Cardiff need to get up the pitch, and the distances need to be shorter across the back four in the midfield. And at times I thought, especially the back four, they kept quite a deep line because I think they were quite scared of the front three. And if that was a tactic they were playing on, then great. But I think the distances between everybody was just too big, and they didn't really attack in numbers. It was only probably 1, 2, and 3s instead of 4, 5s, and 6s, and it's hard for Joe Rolls to drive in the box and for other people to get forward. And I think that shows at the minute with the lack of goals that Cardiff are scoring.
Yeah, I think I feel like Cardiff need to get on the deck a bit more and actually pass it around, because they've got some decent footballers in the middle of the park and they've got some decent wingers, and I feel like sometimes they go too direct, too quickly. Whereas
too early,
I feel like Fulham reminded me a little bit of what Cardiff did against Reading. Is they had a lot of possession, in their own half, on the halfway line, without really doing a great deal with it in terms of creating chances. Now the only difference is Reading hit Cardiff on the break, and they looked like they'd score every time they broke against Cardiff. Whereas Cardiff, obviously, they had the one goal on the break. Didn't think in a great deal of difficulty, even though they didn't have the ball. So I would like to see him get it down a bit more, especially you've got Joe Rolls in the middle. It's good. He can play little balls. He can get the ball moving, and they've got the players to do it. But I think sometimes they rely too much on that sort of direct pass, playing the channels and stuff. I'm hoping that. Go on, mate.
Also, I was a little bit disappointed how. I think both teams cancelled each other out. I think that's come from the Premier League a little bit, that they're both, they both stopped each other playing rather than, playing in the offensive. I think especially second half when Fulham came out, they tried to keep the ball again and then mix their game up a little bit. And I was so surprised that they tried to come out and try and bully Cardiff. I thought they came out in the second half with a little bit of a bite about them. They were leaving the foot in a little bit. They were trying to upset Cardiff and trying to make it a war. And for me, that's not Fulham's game. Fulham's game is to get the ball down, pass loads of little passes, create chances, get the ball wide to Calavidero and to Knockout, and get the ball forward to Mitrovic. The attacking midfielders, get the fullbacks forward. But it just didn't happen second half. And I think they tried to mix it up a little bit. And maybe Scott Parker will be happy with that it shows a different side of the game. But You know what I mean? I think if they'd have gone at Cardiff, you know what I mean, maybe it's like Fulham, like Reading did, like you say, you know what I mean, that Cardiff are vulnerable at the minute. They're letting goals in, and quite a lot of them. So if Fulham had wanted to go and get the 3 points, maybe they could. You know what I mean? And I think once Harry Arter had been sent off, I think there was probably only going to be one winner. And you know, it was a shame that Cardiff couldn't capitalise and get the winning goal and create a little bit more chances. You know, I know that they threw the kitchen sink in the end and brought a few players on, attacking players, but it's just not happening at the minute. And you know what I mean, it needs to start happening, because I know we've only got 6 games and we could go on and win the next 40, but you know what I mean, this is the championship and that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's impossible, I think.
So it was interesting. I saw a few people on social media like Harry Arter didn't dive because there was contact. It's not a dive. And then obviously Scott Parker questioned it, saying if there's contact, you know, what can he do? He's gone down, but whatever. But my point is that he could have actually been booked a third time because he threw the ball at the linesman.
Yeah.
So he probably should have gone anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I think you think it's a dive, don't you? But
well, you think there's contact there. He's being clipped. If that's his own leg clipping him or somebody else's leg clipping him, it doesn't mean you've got to go down 4 or 5 seconds later on. You know what I mean. You look at the Jack Grealish incident. You know what I mean. It could be minimal contact and you go down. You can either go down straight away, you know what I mean, which then makes it a little bit more feasible. You go down 3 or 4 or 5 seconds later on, it just looks ridiculous. And you know what I mean, he did throw himself quite dramatically against the floor, and it just made it look a little bit more ridiculous. And you know what I mean, he was never going to get away with it. You know what I mean, in front of the Cardiff fans, you know what I mean, even the players. It's Sean Morrison. He found it funny because it was embarrassing. I think he was embarrassed for him. You know what I mean. And I think if you look back at it, I think he'll be embarrassed about it as well, because I'm sure he won't make that mistake again, because it's going to cost him playing. He's missing a couple of weeks anyway with the international break, and then you know what I mean. Then when he comes back, he can't play again. So it must be frustrating for him, and hopefully he learns a lesson.
Yeah, and I think when you go, there is a situation where you can go down a few seconds later, but it tends to be where you've been clipped and you try and stay on your feet, and then you sort of stumble.
Yeah, you lose your balance. Down.
Yeah. But he didn't. He didn't stumble. He kind of was all right, and then he just went down. And this. Yeah,
there was contact, and then he steadied, and then he threw himself on the floor because he knew he was going to give a throw in or a corner away, and he wasn't getting out of that corner. That was a problem. So you know what I mean, and he's. You know what I mean? It's a dive. He got a yellow card. The referee's made the right decision, because in hindsight, the referee could have changed his mind and rescinded it, and he hasn't. And he hasn't because he knows he made the right call. Yeah. And that's the end of it.
He was Harry. I thought Harry Arter I thought was pretty good actually, but he was. You could tell that he was really, really bang up for it, and he was a bit wound up, especially in the second half. Like the tackle on Rolls wasn't too clever.
No, well, I think that's what I said. I think he was probably the catalyst for them to start changing their tactic, really. You know what I mean, and start winning battles in the midfield and starting leaving the foot in. You know what I mean, and starting to make it a war. And you know what I mean, he was well up for it. You could tell really from the first minute, with just trying to motivate his own team, that he wasn't going to come to South Wales and wanting to lose. And you know what I mean, he went away with the point, but got himself a red card, and I'm sure he'll be embarrassed looking back.
Yeah, and I think if you'd asked Neil Warnock if he'd wanted like a big physical battle, or if he'd wanted Fulham to go at him with pace and moving the ball quick, he would have taken the big battle, the war, over the ball moving quick and pace every single day of the week.
100%. I think, you know what I mean, I think they played into Cardiff's hands, and you know what I mean, I think that's the reason why probably, because Cardiff didn't play great. You know what I mean, they're not playing great, they're not playing with confidence, they're not playing the free-flowing style of football that's been successful for them. But you know what I mean, there's just something not happening. But I think, you know what I mean, people criticise Cardiff, especially for the lack of possession against Fulham. But end of the day, they drew 1-1 with no possession of the football, or hardly any possession of the football. You know what I mean? And Millwall got less possession of the football a few weeks ago and got beat 4-0. So Cardiff can't have done too badly. You know what I mean? They didn't play great, but they got a point against a very good side, and a side who's in the playoffs for a reason, because they're scoring goals and they've got very good footballers. So I think it can only give Cardiff a bit of confidence going into the international break, refresh the players, get a few lads back from injury, and then see where they go from 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, they need to get the ball out to White and to Murphy and get some decent balls in the box if they're going to play Glatzel, because I hope that once Glatzel gets one goal, maybe he'll get a bit of confidence and score. But he had that one chance, didn't he? He had a header which he headed wide, I think it was.
Yeah, I think he should have scored, and I think he's obviously a confidence player. But you know what I mean. It'd be nice to see him get a run of goals, because you know what I mean. I think once he gets one, like you say, 2, 3, 4 as a centre forward, it always seems to happen.
Okay, let's move on to the next featured game. So just to say, the next 2 games are Reading and Charlton and Leeds and Swansea. So we're going to talk about the team playing the best football in the league at the moment and my second favourite team to watch. And that's Reading versus Charlton. I love watching both these teams, but Charlton in particular, I've been really impressed with Lee Bowyer's tactics. I've said it every week, but just impressive.
Well, I'm gonna start by just mentioning one player in particular, and that's Lyle Taylor. And I can't for the life of me believe that someone's come into the Championship from League One and started so brightly. I can't remember this ever happening. You know what I mean? All right, he's scoring penalties. He's also the way he's taken them, the arrogance he's taken them. He's leading the line. He's got a good touch. He's bringing people into the game. He's setting goals up, and he's probably the catalyst for why Charlton has started so brightly, because he's defending from the front. He's working hard. He's closing people down. And Lee Bowyer is, you know what I mean, he's if he doesn't get manager of the month, this month or last, you know what I mean, to start the season, there's something wrong, because he's just been outstanding. You know what I mean, to come from League One, from the playoffs, and to get the start they have is just outstanding. You know what I mean? We've spoken, we've praised Reading over and over, especially since the Cardiff game. You know what I mean? They've took some excellent points, they've scored goals, they've created chances, but Charlton blew them away. Charlton started bright, I thought, in the first half. I thought Lyle Taylor probably should have scored before Reading hit the crossbar, and then it was an excellent save by Dylan Phillips. You know what I mean? I thought had an outstanding game. He made a great save later on. And then second half, they just blew them away with 2 goals. I thought the penalty was a blatant penalty for the second goal. I think they took a deserved lead. All right, it was a massive deflection. I think it was the wide man Lecco. I think he might have been playing through the middle, but good strike, but took a deflection. But they've got to deserve. You know, to go to Reading at the minute and beat them 2-0 is just a massive result and a massive statement. And if they can continue with half the way that they're doing at the minute, they'll go a long way, because I mean, there's always one shock, and we've said this, you know what I mean, we're trying to work out who it is, but so far they look like they've come down from the Premier League with loads of money, and they're blowing everybody out of the water. And I hope it continues, because you know what I mean, for Lee Bowyer alone, I think they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, like, obviously Puskás hit the bar. He also had a one-on-one saved, which I thought he probably should have scored. And you know, on another day, there's 2 goals for Reading. I thought Conor Gallagher, I thought, was really, really good again.
Yeah.
But like what we said last week, like Charlton defended so well last week, and they did it again today. They defended, and those little periods of the game where Reading did counter-attack or did break or did get a bit on top, wasn't very much of it, but they did have their moments, especially in the sort of first half. They just kept their shape well. They held firm, and they made sure that they didn't concede. And then when you've got people like, you know, Lyle Taylor and Lecco and Conor Gallagher, they're causing problems for the other team. And again, I thought Bowyer was spot on with his tactics. I really liked, with about 15 minutes to go, he brought on Darren Pratley, and Pratley just completely closed down the game, shored it up completely, and just killed it.
Yeah.
And then Reading never really had that big chance towards the end of the game where they could get back into it. So they just completely, you know, they just didn't let him get a foot back in the game.
Yeah, I think they're playing with such belief as well, though. You know what I mean? I think they believe that they're going to score goals. I think they believe that they're going to create chances. I think they believe they're going to keep clean sheets. You know what I mean? As I spoke about there, I spoke about the goalkeeper. That I thought he was outstanding, Dylan Phillips. You know what I mean? And as a group of players, if you've got your confidence in your goalkeeper, they're going to keep clean sheets. 1 goal, 2 goals is enough to win you a game in the Championship. And there's always, you know what I mean. We spoke about Barnsley in League One that they keep a record number of clean sheets and then they win these games 1-0, 2-0. You know what I mean, or let minimal goals in, and you know what I mean. And Charlton at the minute are getting it right. You know what I mean. And I probably feel sorry for them the most that this international break's come along, because it could be a massive hindrance to them, because they are 2 weeks off by the time they come back. You know what I mean. Everyone might have players back, and whoever they're going to play next, it could be a detriment really. And you know what I mean. I hope they carry on, because Lee Boyd deserves it after the start he's made, and you know what I mean. I think he deserves it to continue for that little bit longer. And you know what I mean. And I'm so intrigued to see Lyle Taylor take his next penalty, because if he takes it any more casually, then I think he might end up just falling over, because you know what I mean. If he misses it, it looks like the worst penalty in the world. But because he's putting it away, he's got that swagger about him and that belief and that confidence. And you know what I mean. I can't wait to see his next one. And you know what I mean. And I hope, if I ever do get to see the boy live, and I hope they get to see a penalty live, because it'll just be it looks like a work of art.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Charlton have won 4, drawn 2, which is unbelievable to come up from League One and do that. In answer to your question, one of the last strikers to do it was Robert Earnshaw.
Well, there you
Cardiff.
Go. You know what I mean? And
I'm sure there's been a couple of others.
Yeah, I'm sure there will have
been a couple of others, but
yeah,
he springs to mind.
Top jaw. He's in good company then.
And the last thing I'd say as well on Reading is Reading weren't terrible.
No. I don't think this is giving enough credit to Charlton, because Reading created chances. You know what I mean? At the crossbar, they had a one-on-one. You know, the goalkeeper made a good save. You know what I mean? They should have probably taken the lead before half time, and then you know what I mean. Half time probably Lee Boyer changed his tactics a little bit. You know what I mean? They created they got a fortunate goal with a deflection for Lecco, but got a deserved penalty. But then they should have scored as well later on. But Dylan made another good save, and you know what I mean. So I'm not saying for 1 minute they played badly. It's just that you know what I mean. But Reading got sucker punched by some good and clinical finishes in the end. Yeah.
So as you were just saying, like if you can keep a clean sheet, you're always in the game.
Yeah.
Which moves us on to the next game, which was Leeds 0, Swansea 1, with Routledge getting the winner in the 90th minute. Leeds will be wondering how they've come away with no points, I think.
Well, we spoke. I think it was the first week, wasn't it? When it was the first home game when Bamford missed 2 or 3 gilt-edged chances. I think he hit the crossbar on the first home game, and yet again, it's causing a problem for Leeds. Missed chances. You know what I mean? They're creating a number of chances, but they've got to put them in. You know what I mean? Because the way that game was panning out, you know what I mean? Everybody in the whole stadium would have said, we're going to lose this, because the longer the game goes, and Swansea have belief, Swansea are full of good players, Swansea are full of attacking players. You know what I mean? You give good sides half a chance at 0-0, 1-0 down, maybe they're going to sucker punch you, and you know what I mean? It's going to come back to haunt you. And you know what I mean? Fair play to Swansea, they stayed in the game. They shouldn't deserve, or they didn't deserve to be in the game. They should have been out of sight and out of mind early doors, and Leeds missed some horrific chances, simple chances, sitters, so to speak. But in the end, Wayne Routledge scored a scruffy goal, I'll call it. Cause I guarantee you he won't hit any worse shots, and that'll end up in the back of the net. Cause I thought it was a dreadful goal for the Leeds point of view to give away, especially after what's happened. You know what I mean? That some of the poor Leeds finishing didn't end up in the net, but a not great shot from Wayne Routledge ended up in the Leeds net, and the celebrations at the goal was just fitting for I think relief and a relief 3 points. And you know what I mean, the managers come out breaking records and starting the season with a record number of points for them, and you know what I mean, good luck to them, because they're playing all the stuff at the minute, and going away to Leeds, it can only be full of confidence. But then, like I've just said there, the international break could be a hindrance for Swansea City as well, because you know what I mean, they want to continue this good form, and obviously they can't do it now for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think in the preview show I'd said that Swansea, they had some really good attacking players, but I wondered whether they had the defensive players to to be able to sustain a challenge. And like they've made me look silly because their defence has been outstanding, particularly in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They were really good. Woodman has kept them in the game in goal for large parts of the game. He's made some great saves. From a Leeds point of view, you've got to take one of those chances. There was at least, I think, 3, which you got to score them.
Yeah, the thing is, open goals. It's the lad on loan from Arsenal. I can't pronounce his name, so sorry. Apologies, my ignorance. But he came on and he's Nataya. He's you know what I mean. He's obviously got a good pedigree. He came on, he scored against Salford. He came on, he scored the winner the other week. You know what I mean. So he's a good finisher, but. You know what I mean? We spoke about Paddy Bamford the other week. That you know what I mean. Centre forwards have the off days as well, and you know what I mean. He didn't have a great afternoon, and you know what I mean. He probably had. He only came on with half an hour to go, and you know what I mean. He probably could have had 2 or 3 easily goals for himself if he'd just been a little bit more composed, and obviously came back to bite him on the backside a little bit with the late winner.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, whether it's Cardiff playing Fulham, Swansea playing Leeds. When you play in Leeds and Swansea this year, no matter who you are, you're going to expect for the other team to have the majority of the ball, and you're going to expect to have to defend for large portions of the game and defend your own box. And Swansea did it really well. They, yes, Leeds should have taken their chances, but Swansea stayed in the game and then hit them with the sucker punch at the end.
Yeah.
Leeds will be disappointed with the chances they missed and the state of the goal. Really, it was scruffy and it went through a crowd of people, and it wasn't like it was a powerful shot through a crowd of people. It was like a scuffed, sliced shot which rolled into the corner. But there we go. It's sometimes they go in. I think Swansea's biggest issue going for the rest of the season will be the depth of their squad.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't see them being able to sustain this. You know what I mean? I think if you look at Leeds' squad, you look at Leeds' bench, you look at some of the lads that Leeds haven't got on the. You know what I mean? If I was going to pick out the 2 sides, I'd still go down Leeds United all day long because you know what I mean. On another day, Leeds United would have beat them 5 easily. You know what I mean? With a bit of luck and a bit of composure. On another day, you know what I mean. We're talking here about Leeds United being champions elect in September, you know what I mean, because they were that good, you know what I mean, but they lost the game, you know what I mean. That's not going to happen every week, you know what I mean. Next week, I'm sure, 2 weeks time, sorry, I'm sure we'll be talking about Nataya, Paddy Bamford scoring 2 each and they're winning 4-0 away from home because you know what I mean. They beat Stoke City last week comfortably, could have been more than 3 this week, should have been more than 3 again, but they're going to miss the chances. So it is just one of those things, you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. You pay to be entertained, and the Leeds fans are certainly getting that at the minute. Certainly getting that, you know what I mean. They're watching a side creating chances, and all right, it's just one game, and I'm sure Bielsa will have them turned around by 2 weeks' time and scoring goals freely once again.
Yeah, well, as we'll talk about in a minute, but you know yourself as a striker. There's going to be periods, games where you miss chances and you feel like it might get to you. You've just got to make sure that you're still in the position for the next chance in the next week, and make sure that it doesn't become an ongoing thing. And like we discussed with Andy Cole, the amount of chances he used to miss, but he still scored a great deal of goals. Paddy Bamford had a nightmare in that first or second game, but then came back with scoring a few games in a row. And someone else did that as well after having a bit of a nightmare. So we'll discuss that in a minute.
Well, you don't become bad players overnight, do you? You don't become a bad player overnight. You know what I mean? So cream always rises to the top, I believe, and I'm sure Leeds will be back. You know what I mean? And they'll probably hit somebody soon for a big score. And you know what I mean? That won't surprise me one little bit.
Probably be fucking Cardiff.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up we got Bristol City 2. Middlesbrough 2. So as always, I'll pass this one on to you, mate.
I was a little bit disappointed in the end because I think Middlesbrough started really brightly. I thought they were unlucky not to take the lead through Ashley Fletcher. I thought he hit the post. You know, he didn't hit it great, but the keeper didn't. You know, what I mean, didn't get anywhere near it. You know what I mean, and then just before half time, sucker punch Casey Palmer scored off a set piece, good header, poor defending. You know what I mean? And then Middlesbrough up against it, and then you know what I mean. I'm at half time talking to a couple of my mates, and just talking about how upset and how worried I am about the season. You know what I mean? That you lose this game, you're struggling a little bit. You know what I mean already. You know what I mean, because this is the 6th game. We've only got 5 points, and you know what I mean. For a big club like Middlesbrough, it wasn't looking great. And then cure an own goal by Moore, which, you know what I mean, didn't know anything about. I did feel sorry for him, but it was a great ball in by Paddy McNair, and at the back stick, Moore turned it into his own goal, and it just revitalised Middlesbrough for a Sombolong to go and score 4 minutes later. I think there was a massive hint of offside. You know what I mean? It was, you know what I mean? People go on about VAR in the Championship and Middlesbrough being unlucky, but on about the things even out over the course of the season. And for me, I thought it was offside. He got the other side of the defender. All right, the defender headed it back, but he's still 15 yards further the other side of him. He hit it across the goalkeeper. Hit the post, goes in. You know what I mean? And then you're thinking, can you just hold on? Can you just show the grit and determination and defend like we have done in the previous years? And it wasn't to be. And then Tommy Rowe turns up in the box unmarked, smallest player on the pitch, and diverts a header in. And that's the biggest frustration for me. We've got 6'4", 6'5" defenders to pick up in the box, and you know what I mean. To not pick up the smallest player on the pitch is just criminal. And you know what I mean. I was so disappointed because we've got arguably one of the best centre halves Middlesbrough have ever had as a manager, and we just don't seem to be able to defend and can't defend off corners. And I can't put my finger on it. You know what I mean? Neil Warnock, notoriously good defender. As a manager, keeps his pride in his clean sheets. Jonathan Woodgate, England international defender, and we just can't seem to defend. And we've got to get these things right, because we just spoke about there. Clean sheets win games, and you know, I mean, Middlesbrough are far away from keeping clean sheets at the minute.
Yeah, it was a bit of an end-to-end game. There was like 40 yards attempts on goal, so you know, it's a wide open match.
Proper championship game. Yeah. Proper championship game. Yeah.
I thought Bristol looked, you know, really set at one point. It looked like it was going to be a pretty comfortable day.
Yeah, so did I.
And then they just kind of they picked up another couple of injuries. Their injury list is unbelievable.
Their physios must be the busiest people in the Championship, because I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? I think it's muscle injuries as well. Lee Johnson's talking about hamstrings, and like 3 or 4 hamstrings, which is just never been heard of. Are they warming up properly? They're warming down. There's something then not right. You know what I mean? Because muscle injuries are, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be happening that often. You know what I mean, to players, but.
Yeah, I think who was it? There was a Premier League, a big team who had problems in a couple of years, literally quite recently.
It was Sam. It was Sam Allardyce.
When Van Gaal was there.
Yeah, and I think Sam Allardyce did it as well, and I think it was overtraining. You know what I mean? I played years ago for Sam Allardyce, and it was his training was very physical. It was very very demanding, especially leg wise. You know what I mean? A lot of running. You know what I mean? And it's all about recovery now. The games come thick and fast. You know what I mean? You can do all the running you want in the next 2 weeks to get fit again during this window, but. You know what I mean? When the games are coming Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Saturday, Friday, it's, you know what I mean? You've got to recover, right, and be tip-top shape come match day. And you know what I mean? Obviously, Bristol City are picking up some shocking injuries, and the list continues. And I think we spoke about the window being bad timing for certain teams. I think for Bristol City, it's perfect because it'll give them an opportunity to get some of these players back on the training ground, so Lee Johnson can work with them, and you know what I mean. They'll definitely be up there, Bristol City, I believe, because I thought they played some good stuff. I think the attacking numbers, you know what I mean. I think they had about a 10-minute, 12-minute spell against Middlesbrough of a bit of madness where they're all over the place. Obviously, goals change games, and it certainly did on Saturday morning because the first goal turned into the second goal, and then I think they rocked a little bit. It took them probably 15 minutes to get going again.
Yeah, Bristol need to get those players fit, I think. But then saying that, they've spent so much money over the last 12 to 18 months. They've got a massive squad.
Yeah.
The list is. I think I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I think Boro should stick with Woodgate. I can see signs that it's starting to come together. Every time I say that, the next game they get thumped or they're terrible. But I do see. Whenever I've seen highlights or watched an extended sort of part of their game, and I thought they did in patches did pretty well Saturday morning. But
it's what you want as a supporter, Si. You know what I mean? Because Middlesbrough have been starved of attacking football for years and years and years. Karanka, Tony Pulis. We've been starved. You know what I mean? So I certainly am going to come on here and criticise for the way that we're going forward. Because when you go forward in numbers like they are trying to do and they are doing, it's going to leave a massive gap at the back. You know what I mean? So it's just finding that fine balance, and it's not just defenders who defend. Midfielders have got to defend. Strikers have got to defend. Set pieces. Everyone does the job. You know what I mean? Because obviously teams in this league, you know what I mean. Everyone's a wizard at set pieces, and everyone seems to be scoring goals from set pieces, left, right, and centre. And you know what I mean? It's about attacking and defending. And you know what I mean? If Middlesbrough start keeping clean sheets, they could fly at the table because they're certainly scoring goals for fun.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, next up, Birmingham 2, Stoke 1. Oh, mate, where do we start with bloody Stoke?
I don't know. Do you know what? Part of me did feel sorry for them on Saturday because I thought they were better. I thought they created a lot of chances. Tom Ince had a decent game and a couple of chances. Obviously, they took the lead. It was a great ball in the box, and Lindsay scored with a header at the back stake. And I thought then, here we go. You know what I mean? Because they just beat Leeds in the week in the Cup. You know what I mean? All right, he made a lot of changes. He put Jack Butland back in goal and he changed over again. And Federici played back in goal on Saturday. But I just thought they're taking the lead probably for the first time this season. So they're going to go on and they're going to win the game because Birmingham, you know what I mean? The fans get on the backs when they go behind. And obviously everyone will have been turning up expecting to beat Stoke. And it just didn't happen. And it's just Stoke City all over. They felt a bit. I've just spoke then about Bristol City letting a couple of goals in with a couple of moments of madness, and I'll say the same with Stoke. You know what I mean? What is it, 73 and 76 or something like that? Two goals in the space of 5 minutes. Yeah. It's just criminal. You know what I mean? Jukovic's header. You know, I didn't think it was a great header. I thought the keeper could have done a little bit better, if I'm honest. You know what I mean? And I think looking back, he'll be disappointed. And then the winner, you know what I mean? It was the worst and probably the unluckiest deflection you're going to get. I'm pleased for the young boy, but you know what I mean? But the deflection absolutely killed him. I think it just sums up Stoke's luck because I did feel sorry for them because you know what I mean. The go and beat Leeds in the Cup, deservedly so. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean. We want the good players doing well, the good teams doing well, and you know what I mean. But no one. We've said it from day one. No one's got the divine right to turn up at teams and think you're going to win. And Stoke are full of individuals, but they're just not happening as a team. And you know what I mean. And it must be quite worrying because obviously the manager's left Luton Town to take over, and you know what I mean. Stoke City notorious. You know what I mean about sacking managers, and you know what I mean. They don't seem to give managers that long, and you know what I mean. I do hope to stick with I do hope to stick with him because you know what I mean. I think it'll be a rash decision if they did this now because I think he's got 2 weeks now to get going on the training ground and obviously we'll go from there because you know what I mean they've got some big games coming up because they need to turn things around quickly because you know they've got Bristol City next game, Brentford away, you know what I mean. So you know what I mean there's two ridiculously hard games as well. You know what I mean the games don't come easy. You know what I mean. But those two games I've just spoke about there. They're probably the two harder games and the hardest games that they could have possibly gotten. You know what I mean? It's going to be a testing time for the players because they've got to be mentally right. You know what I mean? They've got to be physically right. They can't turn up for the next game and just think they're going to turn up and win because Bristol City will probably be hurting for what happened against Middlesbrough and they'll want to go and get the 3 points.
Yeah, I think Stoke, the Stoke manager Jones, isn't it? He last Saturday he questioned the players' attitude, didn't he? And he called them out quite scathingly in the post-match interview. Obviously, they gave him a reaction in the midweek, which obviously, you know, it's a lot of different players coming in. And they did all right in this game. They were a bit lucky. They just switched off a bit. I thought I agreed with you. The one note I had about the header was that the keeper had enough time to get across there and back and then across again. You know, it wasn't a powerful header.
He got a good hand to it as well, and he pushed it in the roof of the net. And I just, you know what I mean, if you can push it in the roof of the net, you can either palm it out or you know what I mean. He's a good enough goalkeeper. You know what I mean. He's a very good goalkeeper. You know what I mean. They're very lucky to have two outstanding goalkeepers on the books, and you know what I mean. It just seems at the minute that whichever goalkeeper he seems to pick as his number one on the Saturday makes a either an error or a bit of misjudgment. And I think Federici, you know what I mean, he might have made a mistake, in my opinion, for the first goal. Obviously, the second goal was just cruel. But, you know what I mean? But saying that, you know what I mean, a 16-year-old kid, you know what I mean, I've been there myself and made my debut for my local team, you know what I mean? So for him to score, you know what I mean, his first career goal was pleasing for him, and his celebration, it looked like he scored the best goal of his career. But you know what I mean, it was just a goal's a goal, isn't it? You know what I mean? In certain times, and deflection or no deflection, he'll still remember that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, it's mad. He's 2 years older than my oldest boy, and like he's just scored the winner for his hometown club in the championship game. It's crazy.
Yeah,
but
smart.
Did you see his interview afterwards? He said that obviously when he scored, he's sort of gone nuts, and he's in his head. He's remembered all those times himself celebrating in the I can't remember what the stand's called. I think he said the East Stand, but I apologise to Birmingham fans, whatever stand it is. And he kind of ran towards the crowd, and he was about to get engulfed by all the fans. And I think it was one of the subs, one of the more experienced players, kind of grabbed him and yanked him into the huddle of the players because he would have got booked.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to know that, you know, he's just a young kid, and he's not even like a young. I wouldn't even class him as like a young player. He is just, you know, he's a kid.
He's just a kid there, left school. Yeah, he's just left school. Yeah, just left school. Baby.
Could be going back to school tomorrow.
Probably he'll be at college this week. He'll probably start college this week.
Smart, isn't it?
Yeah.
And younger and younger.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. Next up, Brentford 3, Derby 0. I apologise to Derby fans in advance because you are about to get slaughtered.
This was probably the biggest shock of the weekend for me because I thought Derby were absolutely horrific, and you know what I mean. Obviously, I think since this Wayne Rooney thing's come out that he's signing for Derby, I think the focus of the season just been deflected a little bit. They were blown out of the water. I've never seen defending like it. They're trying to play from the back, which, you know what I mean, they look like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? Was it Bielek and Keogh? You know what I mean? They tried to play out from the back, and Ollie Watkins. He must have thought it was Christmas because chance after chance after chance, he gets himself 2 goals, but how he probably didn't hit 3, 4, or maybe more. You know what I mean? I've never seen a first half performance like I witnessed from Derby. You know what I mean? They were a poor outfit. You know what I mean? They didn't have any quality. They just got blown away, and you know what I mean. And that's giving no disrespect to Brentford because Brentford have invested. They brought some good players in. You know what I mean. We've always spoke about how well they go forward. But you know what I mean, you've got to criticise where, you know what I mean, where performance is due, and Philip Cocu must have been pulling his hair out because, you know what I mean, Derby have started the season absolutely horrifically, and you know what I mean, especially, you know what I mean, they got beaten in the playoff final, you know what I mean, obviously the Frank Lampard thing, but they've got themselves a new manager come in, they've got Wayne Rooney coming in Christmas, but it's irrelevant if you're going to be hanging around the bottom of the table. Do you think Wayne Rooney's going to want to be keeping them from getting relegated at the end of the season? He doesn't want that, and the Derby fans don't want it either. And you know what I mean, Cocu, who's come into his to a big job, you know what I mean, is finding it really difficult at the minute.
Look, I thought Brentford were excellent, particularly in the first half. They were really, really good. But I thought Derby were an absolute disgrace. Yeah. I thought they were arrogant, they were lax, they were sluggish. There was just like no urgency whatsoever.
Yeah.
It reminded me of, do you remember years ago when Man United played Southampton, and Southampton were like 4-0 up at half time, and they changed the kit or something at half time? Blame the grey kit. But it was that bad. Like Brentford, their play was quick, incisive. They were moving the ball, and Derby just couldn't handle it. But for a team of Derby's standing, with the ambitions that they've got, with a manager like they've got, someone who wants to play football the right way, you know, a big name in the football world, to perform like that was, and I didn't think they were that much better in the second half, which is they were better marginally, but only marginally. And to me, that's, if I was a Derby fan who travelled to Brentford, I'd be asking for a refund. I got to be honest.
But what I
because
don't
thought
like,
it
Sai,
was
as well, I
terrible.
don't like it. I think you said it there about being arrogant. You know what I mean? And I look at this this new rule about getting the ball inside the box and keeping the ball and playing short off the goalkeeper, and you know what I mean. And that's not for everybody. And just because this
No.
rule's being brought into football doesn't mean that you've got to do it. You know what I mean? And for me, you know what I mean. It's managers are asking players to do things that they're not comfortable in doing. You know what I mean? Some defenders like to defend, you know what I mean? Old school, John Terry. John Terry liked to defend, proper defender, headed it, kicked it, made an excellent career out of it, and was England captain. I loved him to bits. You know what I mean? You've got Keogh, good defender, but you're asking him to play out from the back. He's not a real Ferdinand. He's not.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
He's not this kind of player. So he you know what I mean? It's just square pegs in round holes. You know what I mean? You can't be doing things like this. It's criminal. You know what I mean? I've never said that I was the best footballer in the world, but if I wasn't comfortable in doing something, you'd have to tell the manager, because it's just it cost him a couple of goals last year. You know what I mean? And it seems like they're playing even more now than they were under Frank Lampard. And you know what I mean? Frank Lampard must be looking back and probably cringing every time he sees it happening, because he probably knows himself that some of the players shouldn't be doing the way that they're doing. You know what I mean? What's wrong with the goalkeeper kicking it out and keeping a high line, and Keogh winning the second balls and winning his headers? You know what I mean? This isn't me picking on him directly. It's the back four was to blame. You know what I mean? The goalkeeper doesn't have to kick it short unless it's directly from his manager. You know what I mean? So someone along the line is getting it massively wrong. And like you say, the Derby fans must have been absolutely distraught on Saturday at about 4:00, because you know they travelled all that way to the game quite with high hopes, and they're ahead of Brentford before the game, and you know what I mean, it all went horribly wrong. And you know what I mean, and even second half they improved slightly, but Brentford probably took the foot off the gas and still probably should have scored 2 or 3 in the second half, because they had another couple of very good chances, and the way they attack and hit teams on the break. You know what I mean? I seen for myself when Brentford came to Middlesbrough that what Ollie Watkins can do on the break, and you know what I mean. They're going to cause a lot of teams problems, and if they can attack like that at home and keep on picking the odd point or 3 up away from home, they're going to be a threat, certainly.
Yeah, you literally, when describing that about the short goal kick, then you used the same 2 players I was going to use as an example, and then singled out the same player that I was going to say, which is quite impressive. So well done.
By the way, though, we didn't speak
Yeah.
about that, though. We haven't, just so everyone knows.
No.
We haven't.
No, we don't discuss anything beforehand, because I want to talk about it twice.
Yep.
The other thing I would say, I wonder with Derby sometimes, because they've been like pretty much every year now for as long as time has been going on, they get to the playoffs and they fail, or they just miss out on the playoffs on the last day, or they just miss out on automatic on the last day. And I do wonder where maybe some of the players, they just expect to be there at the end of the season. They know they're going to, they'll be there or thereabouts. So they get these games throughout the season where they just do switch off, and they kind of just think they got to turn up. But like we singled out in the preview show at the start of the season, Brentford, Charlton, Barnsley, there was a couple of others who their home form would be what would decide where they are at the end of the year, whether it was like Luton staying up or Brentford being in the playoffs, because they're so strong at home. And if teams are not on the ball, they're in for big trouble, as Cardiff found out versus Luton, as Derby found out against Brentford on Saturday. I would describe, I'm not a Derby fan. I'm got no interest in the game from a fan point of view, but I was disgusted by the way Derby played.
But I think you said there, didn't you? You said about expectations. You know what I mean? They're probably due a bad season. They're probably due to underachieve, because, you know what I mean, they've always hit the playoffs and probably fans expect it, but you know what I mean, they can't defend like that. And you know what I mean, he spoke about Waghorn. Waghorn got himself a yellow card. He was a bit frustrated. He was probably their only shining light in the second half. That he had a couple of half decent chances that he probably on another day might have got a goal. But you know what I mean, if he loses form or gets injured or sent off, you know what I mean, that, for me they look a shadow of what they were last year. You know what I mean, because obviously they were full of loan players from last season, what Frank Lampard brought in from Liverpool and from Chelsea, and you know what I mean, I don't see that happening at the minute.
Yeah, they need to they got to have the right attitude. Not just them, all teams have got to have
Yeah.
the right attitude to, you know, otherwise you get found out real quick.
Yep.
Okay. Next, we got Luton 2, Huddersfield 1. Luton, one of my favourite teams to watch as well.
Yeah, well, to be fair, they keep surprising me each week. You know what I mean? They're scoring goals, they let goals in. You know what I mean? There must be a supporter's dream who's like for a neutral. You just guarantee goals with them because you know what I mean. We've spoke about Huddersfield. You know what I mean. I am massively fearful for them. You know what I mean because you know what I mean. They still haven't got themselves a manager. You know what I mean. Which is quite scary. You know what I mean. If normally when you sack a manager, you've got an idea who you want to bring in. You know what I mean. If they have to invest and bring a manager in during this international break because the manager needs to come in and work with the players for 2 weeks. It's for me, it should have been done this week. An ideal opportunity. He could have watched the game against Luton Town and watched them in a competitive game and then trained for 2 weeks, got them ready for the following game. So unless he's going to give it to Mark Hudson, which would surprise me a little bit, unless they're going down a cheaper option, but we've seen before that cheap options don't always work, and you know what I mean. And the way Huddersfield are going, they're dropping like a stone, and I do fear for the supporters and for the football club if things don't turn around quickly, because you know what I mean. Luton outplayed them at times, and you know what I mean. From Huddersfield taking the lead just after half time, Luton blew them away with just endeavour, grit, desire, and just wanting to get back into the game and wanting to get to the ball first. And I think it showed with the penalty which James Collins put away. You know what I mean? That the player wanted to get there first, be ahead of the centre half, and you know what I mean. And he got ahead of the centre half and got clipped, and it was a definite Stonewall penalty. And then I think the second goal was outstanding. Shinny's left foot curler. You know what I mean? I seen it from behind the goal, and I can't remember who the centre half is, but when he hit it, he started applauding straight away because he just knew. Bent it in top corner, and you know what I mean. Obviously, I needed something brilliant to win the game, but Huddersfield, it just worried me a little bit. And if I was a Huddersfield fan, I'd be massively concerned because you know what I mean. You just come down to the Premier League, you're expecting to go there and pick points up. They've lost the last 5 on the bounce. And once the international break is over, you know what I mean, the games come thick and fast again, and you know what I mean. I do worry for them. You know what I mean? They've got Sheffield next and then West Brom. You know what I mean? So, again, no easy game in the Championship, but yet again, you know what I mean? You've got 2 horrendous games coming up.
Yeah, you struggle to see where they're going to pick up points at the moment, don't you? As they're not looking good. I thought Shinny had a very good game, actually.
He did. Well, I think his goal just showed, you know what I mean, his class. You know what I mean? Because he's another... People spoke about James Collins. Can you do it at a higher level? You know what I mean? Shinny's the same thing. He's played in League Two. He's played in League One, and now he's playing the Championship. You know what I mean? And people deserve a chance at this level and this platform, and you know what I mean. And scoring goals like that and playing regular football at this level, he deserves it. And you know what I mean. And having the chance to flourish. You know what I mean? Because Kenilworth Road, it just seems bouncing at the minute because the fans seem so excited to see all these big teams come to Kenilworth Road again. You know what I mean? It reminds me of when I used to watch him years ago when I was a kid, that it was always full when Mark Stein and his brother played up front. You know what I mean? Going back a long time there, and Kingsley Black, and then now it's the same buzz. You know what I mean? And I hope it continues because they deserve it. And you know, they're going to upset a lot of teams at home, and well, they've done it already.
Mark Falcao as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, they've got a proper side. Them rolling back the years, here.
Seriously, mate. Jesus, showing our age as well.
I know. I need to stop that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you know, Luton won 1-2 on the bounce now as well.
Yeah.
And I think they'll fancy themselves to beat anyone at Kenilworth Road. It's just whether they can pick up enough points on the road. But I mean, you know, they stuffed Cardiff on midweek, which will only give them confidence, regardless, you know, from their point of view. Yeah. Whereas I said earlier, you know, I wasn't too worried about that result from a point of view of the team that Cardiff played was completely 11 changes. Yeah. But from Luton's point of view, they just see it as 3-0 versus Cardiff City.
Yeah, well, exactly. The result is the main thing at the end. You know what I mean? And obviously, you can only beat what's in front of you. Luton played against a weaker side, and that'll probably give them a boost and a few young kids. But you know what I mean, Luton went for it. You know what I mean. They made a couple of changes, but kept the majority of their side, and you know what I mean. It breeds confidence sometimes, and it showed on Saturday that wins breed confidence, and they got 2 wins on the belt, and you know what I mean. I'm sure they'll want to continue that going forward.
Indeed. And the other thing I just wanted to say, last thing I wanted to say on that, with guys like Shinnie and Lyle Taylor and James Collins, is they're the players who got these teams to the Championship. So they deserve the opportunity to try their hand at it. And, you know, if it doesn't work out, then fine. But and it goes to show that if Championship teams, you know, there is talent down there in League One and League Two, which can be, you know, young talent, which can be bred and taught and, you know, can be
developed. We just need people just need developed. Yeah.
You don't have to spend 15 million or whatever it is. You could have signed, I don't know, how many Charlton could have sold Lyle Taylor last year for like 5 million. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a Championship club had come in, or, you know, I say Lyle Taylor, but whoever, you know, there's teams there, and when you're in League One and League Two, generally you need the money.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see some Championship teams take a punt rather than spending, like, what did Cardiff spend on Glatzel? 15?
Yeah.
Something like that, do you know what I mean? You're telling me there's not one young striker down in League One who was worth
probably for 10% of that. You know what I mean? And with add-ons and stuff, and with sell-ons, and you know what I mean. You just need that. You just need them scouts to bring you them bargains, and you know what I mean. And certain clubs are working on the shoestring have to do that, and you know what I mean. Sometimes you want your football club to do it because sometimes you miss out on those so-called lesser players because you've got money in the bank.
Indeed. Next up, we've got Millwall 1, Hull 1.
I think Millwall created chances. They deserved to win the game. It was a very fortunate equaliser from Hull. Was it the free kick over the goalkeeper? You know what I mean? I can't work it out if the goalkeeper was at fault or he just misjudged it or it was just a fluke. You know what I mean? Because I think he got all his bearings wrong. But you know what I mean? It was in one of those places which he was never ever going to save it. So. You know what I mean? I'll give the benefit of the doubt that it was just a fluke goal, and you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. The goalkeeper, you know what I mean. He'll probably look back and think that he could have done something differently because it was in. It took a long time to get over his head and end up in where it ended up. But you know what I mean. I think Hull were very fortunate to get anything from the game. You know what I mean. I thought that the penalty was well justified and slotted away by Wallace very well. And I think they created chance after chance again, but they just same thing again. I think with Millwall, that you know what I mean, they're drawing a lot of games at the minute. You know what I mean, where this time last year they were probably losing games, so that they're creating a lot more chances than in previous season, and I think that'll encourage Neil Harris, but he's not getting probably the points to chances ratio and putting teams to bed that I think he'll need or he'll want, because it's still going to be a long season for teams like Millwall and Hull. You know what I mean, come the end of the season, so they need to pick points up when they can, and I think especially Millwall, will see this as 2 points dropped.
I think with Millwall, their biggest challenge is going to be finding scorers outside of I've forgotten his name. The striker. What's Millwall's striker?
Matt Smith. Matt Smith. Yeah, and Bradshaw.
Matt Smith
played as well.
I think because if he plays well, he does tend to score for him, especially at this level.
Yeah.
I think if they can find someone in midfield or out wide who's going to bag like 10 goals or 8 goals this year, that will help them. So they're not too reliant on him. But I mean, they should have won this game comfortably. In terms of that free kick, I do think the keeper's at fault. Surprise, surprise. But I also think that even if he was in the right position, because I thought he was out of position and I thought he was slow to react, but even if he was in the right position and he was quick to react, not many goalkeepers would have got to it just because of where it was. It was like right in the top corner, and it's very difficult to deal with. So whilst I think he was out of position, like that would work. Like if I was his coach, I'd be pulling up the positioning rather than the reaction.
Yeah.
When the ball's in the air. But
Yeah.
that's just me as a goalkeeper father. Hull finished with 9 men. Former Cardiff City goalkeeper turned striker now, isn't he? Josh McGuinness. A red card. Wasn't a particularly great tackle.
No, it wasn't. No, but deserved. I think was that the second yellow? Was it a second yellow?
Yeah, it was a second yellow, but I think it's far off the red.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's probably saved him a little bit because I think with only a second yellow, he only gets a game ban. Where straight red, he would have got him a 3-game ban. So I think his yellow card in the in the second half as well has probably saved him a couple of game suspension.
Yeah. Next up, we got Forest 1, Preston 1. Forest very poor first half.
Yeah, two teams. I can't work out. I can't work them out at all. You know what I mean? We spoke about Preston, how much that we both thought they were going to struggle, and they're not struggling at all. You know what I mean? Not struggling as much as I thought they were going to do. And Nottingham Forest can go to Fulham 2 weeks ago, play them off the park, get the tactics spot on. You know what I mean? Create chance after chance. And then you turn up against a lesser side, like you say in the first half, where you can put teams to bed and struggle. You know what I mean? They were poor in the first half. They picked up the second half. Albert Doma scored a very good goal to equalise. And I like him. You know what I mean? He was at Middlesbrough under Aitor Karanka 3 years ago. He obviously got sold to Villa, got promoted last season. You know what I mean? And for me, he should be playing. He should be starting. He obviously wasn't. He came on and scored straight away. But they've just got strength and depth. You know what I mean? You look at some of the players. You know what I mean? They brought Amiobi off. Going forward. You know what I mean? They've still got Graben who scores goals. You got Amiobi. Lolly obviously had a quiet game. You got Cavalier on loan for Wolves. You know what I mean? They're inundated with attacking options, and you know what I mean. There must be a joy to watch. But you know what I mean. But you've got to pull in better performances, especially at home against the likes of Preston. No disrespect to Preston, but Preston deserved to get. I think they probably deserved in the end the point. You know what I mean? If not a little bit better, but I think Forest got away with one a little bit this week.
Yeah, it was a game of 2 hours really. When Preston were very, very good in the first half, Forest were poor. Second half, Forest were much better, but Preston held firm. To be fair, even though they weren't as good as they were in the first half, and Forest improved. Yeah. They still held firm and got the point, and rightly so. I think, maybe they'll be disappointed that they couldn't have taken their chances in the first half to turn it into 3 points. But I thought, like you say, Joe Lolly was quiet. However, he was involved in the goal again.
Yeah, he was, Crush. Yeah.
Which
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we spoke about Preston there. You know what I mean? Preston, that's the first. You know, I mean, they've lost 1 in 5. You know what I mean? They won the previous 3 games. Granted, one was in the cup. You know what I mean? They're certainly surprising me. You know what I mean? 7th in the league, just behind Fulham. You know what I mean? 10 points from 6 games. They're giving themselves a good chance. You know what I mean? If they do start picking up injuries and they do hit a bit of a bad spell, because it'll happen to everybody. But it depends how many points you've got on the board for when that happens.
Yeah. Next up, Sheffield Wednesday 1, QPR 2.
Another shock. You know what I mean? I think I spoke about QPR at the start of the season, and I spoke to a lot of QPR fans who are massively concerned about scoring goals, and I think they must be extremely surprised at how many goals and chances they are creating. You know what I mean? Obviously, got 2 this week from Jordan Hugill. I look at their front 3. You know what I mean? You've got Eze, you've got Naki Wells, you've got Jordan Hugill, and all 3 of them are scoring goals. All 3 of them are confident. All 3 of them are creating chances for each other, and it's a different person each week. So it's not. I think it was Eze last week. I think Naki Wells scored as well. 2 from Jordan Hugill this week, and you know what I mean. It was a massive shock because Sheffield Wednesday at home. Obviously they took the lead in the first half through Stephen Fletcher penalty, who's scoring his regular goal. Week in, week out, and then but Jordan Hugill's 2 goals I thought were outstanding. His composure for his first one when he took around the goalkeeper was excellent, and then he broke through the offside trap and slotted away the second. And you know what I mean, for a player last year who massively underachieved at Middlesbrough and who apparently failed from obviously a loan move from West Ham. He's proven a lot of people wrong because he can do it at this level. He's proven at Preston he can do it, and I think he's shoving it down a lot of people's throats about what happened last season.
Yeah, I thought Sheffield Wednesday weren't great, and I thought they deserved the comments that Lee Bullen made afterwards.
Yeah.
QPR's, like you say, the front three, they got a lot of pace, which is going to worry most teams. I thought Naki Wells was very, very good. Wednesday missed opportunities at 1-0, and they could have put the game beyond QPR, but they let them back into it, and here we go.
I said it last week. You know what I mean? I think the Sheffield Wednesday situation needs resolving. You know what I mean? Sooner rather than later, they're going to have to make a decision on the manager. You can't be dragging things out because, for me now, it's another defeat and it's another excuse probably for the players that they can blame the situation of the uncertainty of the manager. Is it going to be Lee Bullen? Are they going to bring someone in this next 2 weeks during the international break? And you know what I mean? For me, there just needs a bit of clarity and just to either give him an opportunity or stick a manager in place. I just don't see what teams are waiting for now. Are they waiting for somebody to come available? Because sooner rather than later, there's going to be that many people who are looking for managers that one's going to come available, and they're going to end up all fighting for the same bloke anyway. So it's, you know what I mean? It's a strange scenario. I do find it very, very bizarre. You know what I mean? Because there are good managers out there who probably would love a punt at a big club like Sheffield Wednesday. I look at the Cowley brothers at Lincoln City. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There was talk of them going to Middlesbrough. You know what I mean? Give them an opportunity at a massive club. You know what I mean? Huddersfield or Sheffield Wednesday, they would love an opportunity at a big club, I'm sure. And you know what I mean? And the fans would probably relate to them a lot more than a big name.
Yeah, we got a question actually about the Sheffield Wednesday manager position. In terms of Huddersfield, I don't know why they don't try and get Pullison, someone who can just completely steady the ship for them, because they need to get someone in quick.
Yeah, well, they need someone to shore things up. They need someone who's a little bit regimented like Tony was, and you know what I mean, who's got a style of play, but then players need to buy into it, and they need to buy into it very quickly. Because you know what I mean. Because things can get worse before they can get better, but teams like Huddersfield can't afford them to get worse. And you know what I mean. It's different. It's different for Sheffield Wednesday. I think they've got some good players on the side. You know what I mean. I've got no concern about Sheffield Wednesday at all, because I think they'll upset a lot of teams. They've got good footballers going forward. You know what I mean. And they've got a good goalkeeper. And I don't they don't concern me at all. I still think they'll have a good season. But I do favour Huddersfield a little bit.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Next up was the five goal thriller.
What a
West
game!
Brom 3, Blackburn 2.
Yeah, what a game! I think to be fair, I think the first goal was gifted from Bradley Dack. You know what I mean? I'm going to speak about it a little bit later on. But West Brom can't afford to give teams goals and give teams chances like they gave away. You know what I mean? You give any side a 1-goal head start like they gave. You know what I mean? And it's an uphill task, but they've just got goals in abundance. You know what I mean? They went to Luton, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago, and scored 2 quick fire goals. You know what I mean? They scored 3 goals in probably the space of 10-12 minutes against Blackburn. Phillips, Livermore, and Diagana. I just blew them away. You know what I mean? The standard of goals was just outstanding. Diagana's goal, the third goal, chipping the ball over. You know what I mean? For me, I was screaming at him to pass the ball. So I think it was in the middle. I think it was to Phillips in the middle. Just lay it across, and he picked the hardest option. But it's just the confidence of him. You know what I mean? To chip the ball over the goalkeeper in the back of the net was just fantastic. And Bradley Johnson got himself on the score sheet just before half time. And to be fair, second half, Stewie Downing hit the post. Blackburn had another couple of chances. They had a goal disallowed, which I've watched it a couple of times. I still can't believe it was disallowed. But you know what I mean? For me, it was just a proper championship game. I looked at West Brom's substitute bench. Chris Brunt, Robson Kanu, Kenneth Zaha. It's just it's not even fair. Some Championship sides, you know what I mean? They've got a Premier League squad in the Championship, and you know what I mean. And it's just showing that, you know what I mean, it is about scoring goals, because they're letting goals in quite regular. But they're scoring a lot of goals, and it's all about scoring goals in this Championship and getting over the line. And you know what I mean, if you win 3-2, 1-0, 2-0, it doesn't matter as long as you get the 3 points. And West Brom fans under a new manager, they're loving life in a minute. And Slaven Bilic is getting them scoring regular goals, creating chances, and I think so far so good for him.
Yeah, West Brom need to just shore it up a bit at the back.
Yeah,
and,
they do.
They're hitting the right sort of form there. Diagana's obviously the finish was great, but I thought he had an excellent game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he created chances, scoring goals. But I think this is from a couple of weeks' side. I think it's coming from a couple of weeks. I think he was sub at the start of the season. He came on at half time against Luton, scored both goals, and since then I think he's took off and he reignited his own season. And but I agree with you. I think Slaven Bilic, another world class centre half, can't defend, or his team can't defend. So it's just it makes for an enthralling season, enthralling games, because obviously Tony Mowbray was an excellent centre half in his day as well. So you know what I mean, you've got two defenders as managers and 5 goals in the game, and should and could have been more. You know what I mean? So it just shows that when all these good players come on the pitch, that attackers are taking over and defenders are struggling a little bit.
Yeah, Matt Phillips had a good game as well.
Obviously, he does. He's excellent. He's excellent.
That was Slaven Bilic's first win of the season, or first home win? I forget now.
First home win, because they went down to down to Luton, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago, and won. They've had a couple of draws at home against a couple of decent sides, but obviously they lost against Millwall. So you know what I mean. I think he won't be. You know what I mean, they haven't picked up as many points as I thought, but they're still sitting decent in 4th place with 12 points out of 6 games. So you know, I mean, I'd be well happy if I was a West Brom fan, because I still think there's still more to come for them.
Oh God, yeah. If they start keeping clean sheets, they could go on a run of 10, 12 games.
Yeah, and this is my worry, Si. I think this is my concern. You know what I mean? I look at the squad, and I've just named 6 players there, and if 1 or 2 of them get injured, they've still got room and spares to come back. So you know what I mean? And teams like West Brom, you know what I mean, that if they're still in and around where they are now, come January, they'll probably go to another level again, and maybe reinvest again. Come the next window, and that's quite scary, really. That you know what I mean, and that good sides will always keep progressing and want to go up. Because I think West Brom need, I think, to go up this year. I think with I think the parachute payments will probably finish this year from the last time in the Premier League. So they're probably being told their remit this year is promotion. They have to get there.
This is what I said to you when we were speaking just before we started doing the regular show, is that the reason I was worried about Cardiff is I felt like they didn't address the goal scorer issue, but also when you look at the West Brom, Leeds, Fulham, Swansea, Derby, they've all got goal scorers. And like Cardiff, like you could see West Brom, you could see Fulham, you could see Leeds going on a big long run of 10 games without losing and winning most of them. Whereas Cardiff, yes, they might keep some clean sheets and they'll pick up points. I struggle to see them really pushing on unless Glatzel or Vassell starts, getting a bit of form and banging them in with a bit of confidence. But I just don't see it at the moment. I think it's important they start getting the ball to Tomlin on the floor and see if he can do something.
I look at Zaha, and you know what I mean. I think for me, the bigger picture is how effective he was. Looking back now, he's not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. And you look at some of the all right, he didn't start on Saturday and he came on, but some of the chances that West Brom have created this season is just by his physicality alone. You know what I mean. They've got runners either side of him, and you know what I mean. He takes a lot of pressure off other players, and I think sometimes as a football fan, you only realise how good somebody was until they've left. And you know what I mean. I think that's my opinion on Kenneth Zaha. You know what I mean. Sometimes I thought his touch wasn't up to it. You know what I mean, or you know what I mean. He didn't score enough goals. I was quite critical, but I think since he's left, I think he's left quite a big hole to fill and some big shoes to fill, and at the minute they haven't been filled, and I think that's my concern. And when he's gone to another side, and he scored his goal last week, you know what I mean? He's playing in a side who's creating chances, and he will get goals in that West Brom side, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely at championship level, I think I completely agree. And also, I think when fans watch, sometimes they don't realise how much his movement off the ball creates space for others to run into. So even if he's having an off game, he's still doing that, making that space for the wingers or the midfielders to run into.
But I think his physicality as well, you know what I mean? I think he enjoys that fight, he enjoys that battle, you know what I mean? He's built as a British centre forward that he'll go and have a fight and have a scrap with someone for 90 minutes, and as long as his team wins, he'll be happy that he set a couple of goals up, or he's taking the pressure off a little winger who's got himself a couple of goals. And you know what I mean? That's what it was all about at Cardiff. You know, it's about getting results. And you know what I mean? West Brom at the minute have turned it around, and they've got strikers in abundance that can mix the game up by bringing on Charlie Austin, bringing on Kenneth Zaha. You can do two different styles of football, and you know what I mean? That's having a different plan A and plan B. And you know what I mean? We spoke about Cardiff; they're a little bit predictable at the minute, and teams are seeing them off by them not having that plan A, plan B, plan C, and West Brom have got that at the minute.
Okay, yeah, I agree. It's we'll see. There's only 6 games gone, is what I keep telling myself.
Yeah.
And last game of the weekend, Wigan 0, Barnsley 0.
Yeah, I think not many 0-0 draws this season. I think Barnsley will have been happier because after what happened last week against Luton Town, and obviously not being able to defend, to keep a clean sheet this week and getting back to basics, I think they'll be quite pleased with what happened. You know what I mean? Finishing the game with 10 men, which I thought was it wasn't a great tackle by Williams. You know what I mean? And he'd already been on a yellow card, so to already be on a yellow card and get a straight red, it's quite impressive. But you know what I mean? It was a blatant red card for me. It's straight red and well deserved. But you spoke about it last week, Si, about Wigan, and I've seen them at the Riverside, and they were half the team of what they showed against Cardiff, and they just don't seem to be hitting those heights of that first game of the season. And I'm confused because if you know what I mean, all right, they are missing players, and you know what I mean, they invested in Windass, they invested in other players, and you know what I mean, you've got injuries for in certain areas, which obviously isn't great, but you know what I mean, they're missing Windass, they're missing Pilkington, they're missing players in key areas because they're just not creating chances, and they're not scoring enough goals. And you know what I mean, they need those kind of players back because you know what I mean, they haven't got a massive budget with them. You know what I mean, so the players that they've invested in, Josh Windass is there, Anthony Pilkington's from Cardiff, obviously he got released by Cardiff, but they need these players back on the pitch because they can't function without them. It doesn't look for me.
Yeah, I think I do disagree with you slightly in that I don't think Barnsley would have been the happier simply because Wigan were on 5-game losing run. They'd lost 5 on the bounce. I think they were desperate for anything, just a point or something. So to get a clean sheet, yes, they probably would have preferred a home win. Yeah. But I think when you've lost 5 on the bounce, you just don't want to lose another one.
Yeah.
David Marshall was reliving his glory days at Cardiff with some fantastic saves. There was one which was just unbelievable.
Yeah, no, he made a couple of good saves. He did, yeah. But they've got some good players, Wigan, on paper. They just need to get them all on the football pitch at the same time and be able to. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest thing. You know what I mean? The manager's invested in probably a small squad, but he needs them all available because he can't go out and bring in another player because the funds aren't there, because you're still paying a Josh Windass, you're still paying a Anthony Pilkington, you're still paying a Charlie Mulgrew. You need them all on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so that's the games out of the way. Let's move on to the 2 up or 2 for 2. Keep changing the bloody name of it each week. 2 for 2. So this is where myself and Andy pick 2 big performances, moments, or players, and 2 nightmares from the previous weekend. Okay, we did ups first last week, so we'll go with downs this week. Now, you sent me these. You sent me yours yesterday, so we didn't say the same ones.
Yep.
And I read them yesterday. And then when I did mine earlier, just about an hour before we started recording, I completely forgot what you said, and I didn't have my phone with me. So we could have the same ones again.
Oh, here we go then.
See now. Go on, you go first then. First down.
Right. Well, I've gone for 3 players. So if you get to see it, that's the first goal for Blackburn Rovers. I've gone Sam Johnson, Cal Barkley, and Romain Sawyers for their part in overplaying for Blackburn's first goal, because I just couldn't believe what they were doing. It's the first minute of a football match. You grow into games. You know what I mean? I've always been told by managing coaches you grow into games slowly. So overplaying. You know what I mean? When you're not probably fully confident or you're not aware what's going on, give a goal away. And Bradley Dack obviously finished very well, but for me, my first, I just thought was awful defended by all 3 of them.
Okay, good. I haven't got those 3. And so I had, first of all, I got Kevin Stewart from Hull. He missed a rebound from the keeper from 3 yards, which would have won his team the game. And I thought that was poor, because he didn't just the keeper didn't really save it. It was just poor.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Stewart, but you're having a down for that. And what was your next one?
I've gone for Mr. Harry Arter for his ridiculous dive on Friday night, because I just thought I was quite critical of Wyman's handball for Bristol City a couple of weeks ago. So you know what I mean. I said that was cheating. It was cheating, blatant cheating. And this is classed as the same. You know what I mean. If Harry Arter does that in the box and he gets a penalty, it's cheating. If he's trying to con a referee in doing what he's done, it's cheating. It's blatant, and I just thought it was just embarrassing. And you know what I mean. I think he'll be embarrassed once he saw it back, if he has watched it back. But you know what I mean. The more people who say it wasn't a dive is just deluded.
It is cheating, and do you know why? He did it because it was going out for Cardiff corner. He had overhit it, and he was going out for corner. So he thought, go down. So I also didn't have Harry Arter, so that's a good result.
Impressive.
I had Ben Williams from Barnsley because I thought his challenge was absolutely.
Yeah, well, I was debating that one. That would have been my next one. If it was 3, it would have been on there.
Well, part of the reason I picked it was because, one, he could have broke his leg, but also he could have broke his neck the way he landed, because he kind of flipped over and landed on his head, which I get. It's not Ben Williams' fault that he flipped over and landed on his head. No. But it was a reckless
But I think that's the word, isn't it? Reckless, because if you are going in reckless, you don't know the outcome, and the outcome could be disastrous for yourself and for the opposition player, because you could end up hurting yourself. You know what I mean? It's hurt both people.
Yeah, he knew it as well. You could tell by his face that he knew that he had done a naughty one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you got for your first up?
I've gone for Jude Bellingham, the 16-year-old, scoring his first goal for Birmingham City, because I know what it was like when I first played for my hometown club, and I was 17 when I scored for my first goal, and it was just the best buzz and the best feeling ever. So, you know what I mean. I'm sure on Saturday night that he'll have been the happiest and proudest man in Birmingham. I'm sure, because all right, it was a deflection, but he won't have saw that when he went to bed and dreamt that goal 10 times or 20 times over during his dreams. He'll have saw it nestle in the back of the net and heard that roar of the crowd, because it was a great feeling to see, and I was so pleased for him. So pleased for him.
Yeah. I've gone for Ollie Watkins of Brentford. He scored 2 as Brentford destroyed Derby inside the first half. But also, let's not forget, he banged in a load of goals this year, but he's also playing out of position. He's not a striker.
No.
And I thought he was very good, not apart from the 2 goals. He also, like we mentioned earlier, he could have scored 3 or 4. So I thought he was very, very good.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Second. You got a second?
My second and final one is Jordan Hugill for his 2 goals. I thought he's proven a lot of people wrong. I loved his goal when he took the ball around the goalkeeper. I just thought his composure, and it's just, you know what I mean. And this is a player who's been struggling the last couple of years. You know what I mean. His composure, his touch, his finish was outstanding. And you know what I mean. And the QPR fans will be absolutely loving him in a minute and hoping that they can make it a permanent move in January if he continues to score goals, because they won't want to lose him in January and go back to West Ham or sign for somebody else, because it'll be a big hole to fill if he's scoring regular goals like he is at the minute.
Yeah, and look, we rightly slaughtered him a bit last week for that miss. That miss was terrible. It was just bad. So to come back and not just score 2 goals, but to finish like in that way with that composure shows a fantastic mentality and attitude.
Well, he had more time.
So
to
I was,
these goals.
but we said we try not to get the same one.
Yeah.
So we said we weren't going to pick the same one. So I was going to pick him. But I was, like I say, I'd forgotten who you'd picked, but I was 99% sure you'd picked him. So I picked David Marshall of Wigan, because his excellent performance, numerous great saves, helped Wigan keep clean sheet and end a 5-game losing streak.
And he's an ex-Cardiff player, so happy days.
Yeah, I had to have a reserve because just in case you picked Jordan Hugel as well. Yeah. So there we go. Okay, and next up to finish off, we'll have our Q&As. So, friend of the show, Johnny Wishbone, asks 2 questions. He said, what can the EFL do to make sure Bolton don't end up like Bury?
I think the EFL have got. I think they cause their own problems with not doing the proper checks on chairmen and making sure that teams can't fulfill a full season. You know what I mean? These checks have got to be done a little bit more serious and make sure that chairmen and football clubs have enough money to pay wages for the whole football club, not just players. You know what I mean? You've got players, you've got staff, you've got other people who work in football clubs, secretaries, etc. So you know what I mean? That these checks have just got to be done a little bit more good and proper, because it's such a shame for a football club to go out of existence. You know what I mean? Bury, I played at Gig Lane, and it was always a lovely place to play, and always a nice football club, and people have lost their jobs, not just footballers. You know what I mean? It's people who got mortgages, people who love going to watch their football club. What are they going to do on a Saturday afternoon now? It's such a shame, and I'm gutted for them.
Yeah, and I got to say, did you see the owner on TalkSport or hear the owner on TalkSport?
I did, yeah, and I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified. I was embarrassed. Yeah, I was embarrassed for him. You know what I mean? And him blaming supporters, and you know what I mean. Those supporters are passionate about that football club. You know what I mean? Those supporters are passionate about football. You know what I mean? They might not all be Bury supporters. You know what I mean? That the Bolton Wanderers supporters are frustrated. You know what I mean? That the people in the Manchester community are frustrated, because that football club's been around for years and years and years. And if it happens to Bury, it can happen to anybody, because all it takes is a chairman pulling the plug on money. And where do you go? You know what I mean? Some football teams are probably losing £1 million a month. You know, I'm not spending £1 million a month. If chairmans decide I'm not going to pay it anymore, then what happens to that football club? You know what I mean? No one's got that kind of money to do it. And you know what I mean? And I look at the Middlesbrough chairman. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for Steve Gibson, Middlesbrough Football Club wouldn't be anywhere where they are. You know what I mean? And you see some people wanting him to pass the football club on to somebody else. And he's a Middlesbrough fan. You know what I mean? And I'm so fortunate and so lucky to have my hometown football club run by a supporter who has the best interests at heart. And you know what I mean? The joker who was on TalkSport for Bury, just he needs he should be embarrassed of himself. And I hope one day he finds out how hurt a lot of people are, because you know what I mean? He's ruined not just a football club, he's ruined the football community and the football family, because he's just, you know what I mean, he's ruined the league for this season, because you know what I mean, there's a team who doesn't have a fixture, you know what I mean, and that can ruin all sorts. It can ruin people's social lives, it can ruin football teams' consistency. It's just a shame for football in general. Massive shame.
Yeah, and he's just an arsehole.
Yeah, he is.
Perfectly frank.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about owners. I'm glad you've got Steve Gibson. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Johnny also asked, should the EFL have done more to help Bury stay alive?
How much could they do without bailing them out and giving them money? You know what I mean? Because if they bail them out for a month, 2 months, the rest of the season, and then it happens to another team, and it happens to another team. You know what I mean? Then teams then would probably complain about having unfair advantages and things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one because I don't want to come across here being disrespectful to Bury. You know what I mean? But because the EFL's an organisation, you know what I mean? If they start helping Bury out, then they should help out MK Dons, should help out other teams, and you know what I mean. By the time they've helped out every team, then they've run out of money and then there's no football league because we haven't got anything left. So it's a difficult one. The problem is the chairman. The chairman's caused the problem, not the EFL. The EFL have been strict with their rule and their ruling, and you know what I mean. And you know what I mean. It's just a shame that it's come to where it has, and now that Bury are going to have to go and apply next season to be in a different league, and that's the heartbreaking part of it for me.
Yeah, I just hope that they do stay alive. You know, in terms of whatever league they play in, I just hope that they do manage to keep the club going in some way, shape, or form for the fans, if nothing else. Yeah. And obviously, the club captain's either lost or losing his house because of it as well. So,
yeah, well, I seen that. I seen that interview, and he said that he had to tell his little girls that they have to move house because you know they have to move schools. So it's heartbreaking. You know what I mean? It's people. You know what I mean? Bury players won't be on millions and millions of pounds like the Man Cities and the Man Uniteds down the road. You know what I mean? And the working class people who need the money, and you know what I mean? How can they pay the mortgages if they're not working? And it's such a shame because it's heartbreaking. It is. It's horrible. Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah, you're right there, mate. Gaz Cubbins asks, should Cardiff sign Joe Ledley, seen as back is injured for 2 months?
I found it strange since Joe left. Since Joe left Derby, and he's been looking for a club that I'm surprised Cardiff didn't just. It's not even a risk. It's you know what I mean. It's a player. What's a free transfer? You know what I mean. I'm sure Joe probably would have been happy to come on even a pay-as-you-play basis anyway. You know what I mean. Just to get himself sorted and come back to Cardiff City, and you know, it would have been good for both parties. So I'm. Would I go and get him? I think, of course, I would. You know what I mean? He's obviously a local boy. He's a Welsh boy. He gives you that balance with his left foot. He's good on the ball. He knows the league inside out from his time at Derby. You know what I mean? He's had a very successful career, and I think it would be a no-brainer to go and get him in. So the answer to that is 100% yes.
There we go. And lastly, Peaches asks, Lee Bullen or Karanka, Pullis, Monk, or Houghton for Sheffield Wednesday? Who would be the better choice?
Oh, to be fair,
some familiar names in there for you, mate.
There is, yeah, especially for me, yeah. I would go Karanka. I think Karanka's got a track record in this league. He did all right at Forest, to be fair. Before he lost his job, he's got Middlesbrough promoted. He has a style of football. I think for some of the players what are already there at Sheffield Wednesday, I think he'd enjoy working with because he'd enjoy working with Big Fletcher. I think Adam Reach, obviously Westwood in goal. I think they've already got a strong squad. They just need a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of guidance. I would go for Karanka, and that's not just because he's been successful at my football club, but. I think he's got a good track record of the league. You know, I mean, he's been in this division a long time, and probably deserves another crack because I don't think he got a fair crack at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, cool. Okay, there we go. That's it. So, guys, you can follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Campbell 32. Go follow the show at ACEcast_nation or Facebook.com/ACEcastNation. I'll be putting up posts for the Q&A questions probably Friday or Saturday, and then just use the hashtag AceNationArmy and send your questions in for Andy to answer. we'll be back next week. All the shows, as usual, available video format at YouTube, audio at usual podcasting sites and platforms. Thank you for joining me, mate.
My pleasure, mate.
It's another good one. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, good.
And also let us know if you prefer the slightly shorter version. It's only slightly shorter anyway, but like where we sort of focus on 3 games and then flick through the rest, or if you prefer us to go through every single game in detail. Makes no difference to me. I'm just the guide. Andy's the one who provides the expert analysis. So there we go. Thank you for joining me, guys. Thank you for joining me, Andy. And we'll see you next week.
Ciao, man. Thank you.